Picture this. A nation emerges from one of history's darkest chapters, its economy in ruins, its currency worthless paper scattered in the wind. Most countries would take decades to recover, if they ever did. But Rwanda did something almost unprecedented in modern economics. They didn't just rebuild their monetary system, they completely replaced it, creating one of Africa's most stable currencies in the process. Today, we're diving deep into how Rwanda pulled off what economists call impossible, a successful monetary reformation that transformed a country from economic devastation to becoming the Singapore of Africa. I'm about to show you the exact playbook Rwanda used to replace their currency and why this story matters more than ever as countries worldwide grapple with inflation, currency instability, and economic uncertainty. By the end of this video, you'll understand not just what Rwanda did, but how their revolutionary approach to monetary policy could reshape how we think about money itself. But first, let me paint you a picture of just how dire things were. The year was 1994. Rwanda had just endured a genocide that claimed nearly 1 million lives in just 100 days. The country's infrastructure was obliterated. Banks were destroyed, government institutions had collapsed. And their currency, the Rwandan franc, had become essentially worthless, not because of typical economic factors, but because the entire system that backed it had ceased to exist. Most economists predicted Rwanda would need international currency support for decades. Some suggested they should abandon their national currency entirely and adopt the US dollar or join a regional monetary union. The conventional wisdom was clear. Starting from scratch was impossible. Rwanda proved them all wrong. Here's where the story gets fascinating. Because Rwanda didn't just replace their currency, they engineered what might be the most successful monetary reformation of the modern era. And they did it using principles that challenge everything we thought we knew about how currencies work. The first genius move Rwanda made was understanding that currency isn't just about money. It's about trust, identity, and sovereignty. While most post-conflict countries rushed to stabilize their existing currency, Rwanda recognized that their franc carried too much historical baggage. It represented a failed state, ethnic division, and economic collapse. They needed a clean slate. But here's what makes this truly remarkable. Instead of immediately introducing a new currency, Rwanda spent 3 years methodically rebuilding the institutions that would support it. They established a new central bank with completely revamped monetary policies. They created transparent banking regulations. They implemented anti-corruption measures. Most importantly, they rebuilt public trust in government institutions. This preparation phase was crucial because currencies don't just need economic backing, they need psychological backing. People have to believe in the system for it to work. Rwanda understood that printing new money without addressing the underlying trust deficit would just create another failed currency. The technical execution of Rwanda's currency replacement was equally brilliant. In 1997, they introduced the new Rwandan franc, but they didn't just swap old notes for new ones. They used the transition as an opportunity to modernize their entire monetary system. New security features made counterfeiting nearly impossible. Digital tracking systems allowed real-time monitoring of money supply. And most innovatively, they introduced denominations that reflected the country's economic aspirations rather than its current reality. But the real genius was in the timing and communication strategy. Rwanda announced the currency change with complete transparency, giving citizens and businesses ample time to prepare. They established exchange centers in every district, ensuring even rural populations could easily convert their old francs. They printed educational materials in all local languages, explaining the change. This wasn't a secretive government operation. It was a national project that every Rwandan could participate in. The economic results were almost immediate. Within 6 months of the new franc's introduction, Inflation had stabilized. Foreign investment began flowing in. International trade partnerships expanded. But perhaps most importantly, domestic confidence in the currency soared. Rwandans began saving money again, investing in local businesses and planning for the future, behaviors that had been impossible during the economic chaos of the early 1990s. Now, you might be thinking this sounds too good to be true. Surely there were complications, setbacks, or unintended consequences. And you'd be right to be skeptical, because most currency replacements fail spectacularly. Just look at the chaos when Argentina tried to replace its currency multiple times, or the ongoing struggles of countries that have attempted similar reforms. What made Rwanda different? The answer lies in what economists call the institutional foundation principle. Rwanda didn't just change their money, they changed how they thought about money. The new central bank operated with unprecedented independence from political interference. Monetary policy decisions were made based on economic data rather than political expediency. Government spending was transparent and accountable. These weren't just policy changes, they were cultural shifts that supported the new currency. But perhaps the most innovative aspect of Rwanda's monetary reformation was how they handled the psychological transition. They understood that people needed to not just accept the new currency, but embrace it as a symbol of national renewal. So they launched what amounted to a national branding campaign for the new franc. The new notes featured Rwanda's natural beauty, technological achievements, and cultural heritage. They celebrated the country's progress rather than dwelling on its tragic past. Each denomination told a story of hope and advancement. This wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate strategy to make the currency a source of national pride rather than just a medium of exchange. The timing of this transformation coincided with Rwanda's broader economic reforms. The country was simultaneously modernizing its legal system, investing in technology, infrastructure, and implementing business-friendly policies. The new currency became part of a comprehensive economic transformation that economists now study as a model for post-conflict development. Here's where things get really interesting from a global perspective. Rwanda's success with monetary reformation came at a time when established economies were struggling with currency instability. While developed nations dealt with quantitative easing, inflation concerns, and digital currency disruption, Rwanda was proving that fundamental monetary reform was still possible. The international community took notice. The World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and various development agencies began studying Rwanda's approach as a potential template for other struggling economies. Countries across Africa and beyond started sending delegations to Kigali to understand how such a dramatic monetary transformation was achieved. But Rwanda's innovation didn't stop with successfully replacing their currency. They began incorporating technology into their monetary system years before most developed countries even considered digital integration. Mobile money platforms were integrated with the banking system. Digital transaction tracking reduced corruption and increased economic transparency. Rural populations gained access to formal banking services through technology-enabled financial inclusion programs. This technological integration created something unprecedented, a currency system that was simultaneously traditional and cutting-edge. The physical franc provided stability and familiarity, while digital integration provided efficiency and accessibility. It was a hybrid approach that many economists now consider the future of monetary systems. The ripple effects extended far beyond Rwanda's borders. Regional trade partnerships expanded as neighboring countries gained confidence in Rwanda's monetary stability. International businesses began using Rwanda as a regional hub, knowing they could rely on currency stability. The franc became accepted for cross-border transactions in ways that the old currency never had been. But perhaps the most significant impact was psychological. A generation of Rwandans grew up with a stable, trustworthy currency. This created economic behaviors and expectations that reinforced the system's stability. Young entrepreneurs felt confident starting businesses. Families felt secure, saving money for the future. This psychological foundation became self-reinforcing, creating a positive cycle of economic confidence and growth. The success metrics are remarkable. Rwanda's inflation rate has remained among the lowest in Africa. Their currency has maintained stable exchange rates with major international currencies. Foreign exchange reserves have grown consistently. International credit ratings have improved dramatically. But beyond these technical measures, Rwanda achieved something even more valuable: monetary sovereignty in an era when many countries feel powerless against global financial forces. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Can Rwanda's model be replicated elsewhere? This question has become increasingly relevant as countries worldwide face monetary challenges. Venezuela's currency has collapsed. Turkey has experienced severe inflation. Even established economies like the United Kingdom have faced currency instability. Could Rwanda's approach offer solutions? The answer is both yes and no. Rwanda's success was built on unique circumstances that may not exist elsewhere. They had a small, relatively homogeneous population that was unified by shared trauma and recovery goals. Their government maintained unusual political stability during the transition period. They had strong international support and relatively low external debt. These conditions created an ideal environment for monetary reformation that might not exist in other contexts. However, the principles behind Rwanda's success are transferable. The emphasis on institutional building before monetary change, the importance of transparent communication and public participation, the integration of technology with traditional monetary systems, the focus on rebuilding trust rather than just replacing currency. These approaches could potentially work in other contexts, even if the specific implementation would need to be adapted. But there's another layer to this story that makes it even more relevant today. Rwanda's monetary reformation coincided with the early stages of what we now recognize as the digital currency revolution. While Bitcoin was still years away from creation, Rwanda was already experimenting with digital integration in their monetary system. Their hybrid approach, combining stable physical currency with digital innovation, may have inadvertently created a blueprint for how traditional currencies can adapt to the digital age. This forward-thinking approach has positioned Rwanda advantageously as central bank digital currencies become a global trend. Their experience with technology-integrated monetary systems gives them insights that many developed countries are still struggling to achieve. They're not just catching up to global financial trends. In some ways, they're ahead of them. The geopolitical implications are equally fascinating. Rwanda's monetary independence has given them unusual diplomatic flexibility for a small African nation. They can negotiate international agreements without worrying about currency manipulation or external monetary pressure. This sovereignty has translated into political influence that exceeds what their size would normally command. But let's zoom out and consider what Rwanda's experience tells us about the future of money itself. Their success suggests that national currencies can still thrive in an era of globalization, digital disruption, and economic uncertainty. It demonstrates that monetary policy can be a tool for national development rather than just economic management. Most importantly, it proves that even the most fundamental economic systems can be reformed when there's political will and public support. The timing of Rwanda's monetary reformation also offers lessons about crisis as opportunity. They used their moment of maximum disruption to implement changes that would have been impossible under normal circumstances. This approach, using crisis as a catalyst for fundamental reform rather than just recovery, has applications far beyond monetary policy. As we face our own era of economic uncertainty, inflation concerns, and monetary instability, Rwanda's example offers both hope and practical insights. It shows that currencies can be reformed, that public trust can be rebuilt, and that small nations can achieve monetary sovereignty even in a globalized world. The technical aspects of their approach continue to influence monetary policy discussions worldwide. Their emphasis on institutional building, transparent communication, and technology integration has become a template studied by central banks globally. Even major economies are adopting elements of Rwanda's methodology as they consider their own monetary reforms. But perhaps the most important lesson from Rwanda's monetary reformation is that currency is ultimately about more than economics. It's about national identity, public trust, and shared vision for the future. Rwanda succeeded not just because they had good technical policies, but because they created a currency that embodied their aspirations as a nation. This psychological dimension of monetary policy is often overlooked in economic discussions, but Rwanda's experience suggests it may be the most crucial factor. Their new franc succeeded because people wanted it to succeed. It represented hope, progress, and national pride in ways that purely technical monetary reforms rarely achieve. As we look toward the future of global finance, with discussions about central bank digital currencies, cryptocurrency adoption, and monetary policy innovation, Rwanda's experience offers a unique perspective. They prove that successful monetary reform requires more than just technical expertise. It requires vision, communication, public participation, and above all, the ability to make currency a symbol of collective progress rather than just individual transactions. Rwanda's monetary reformation stands as one of the most successful examples of comprehensive economic transformation in modern history. From a collapsed post-genocide economy to a stable, technology-integrated monetary system that serves as a regional model, their journey offers insights that extend far beyond monetary policy into questions of governance, development, and national renewal. The story continues to evolve as Rwanda builds on their monetary success to become a regional financial hub, technology center, and model for sustainable development. Their franc, born from the ashes of economic collapse, now represents not just monetary stability, but proof that even the most fundamental systems can be rebuilt when there's commitment to doing things differently. What makes this story particularly compelling is how it challenges our assumptions about what's possible in economic development. Rwanda proved that small nations can achieve monetary sovereignty, that post-conflict countries can build world-class institutions, and that comprehensive reform can happen quickly when there's political will and public support. These lessons remain relevant as countries worldwide grapple with their own economic challenges and consider what fundamental changes might be necessary for future prosperity.